Hello again, this is UML Operator. In this session, we're going to be talking about the Specialized tab. And when I say talking, we're going to go through this very quickly. This is an advanced subject. I'll cover probably each one of these groups, these panels in individual sessions, but I do want to touch on a couple of tools in here that may be interesting to you as beginners, as well as intermediate and advanced modelers in Sparx. And as usual, I want to take us to the Sparx System Welcome page, which you can access via the Start tab and over on the right, the Help book. And when you get to this page, as I've told you before, you're going to go to Application Desktop, you're going to go to Ribbon menu, and today we are on the Specialized ribbon, right? So you can read ahead. I'm going to be covering these panels or groups, touching on them again, I should say. I'll let you drill down and learn more. It's a very interesting set of tooling, and for advanced Sparx modelers, it's a critical place you're going to be quite often. All right, so we're starting in the Tools panel or Tools group, and we're starting with System Integration first. I'm going to go ahead and select it. Now, right now, I am not connected to any external data sources. Essentially, this defines how the data from those external sources is represented in Sparx Enterprise Architect. When developing a model in EA, you could connect to external applications such as Microsoft Team Foundation Service, TFS, Jira, or Jira. I want to say Jira Align. Jira has evolved with Atlassian quite a bit over the last couple of years, but any other external data sources that you want to connect to. And I'll cover this in another session in connecting to such data sources and how they may be used with Sparx Enterprise Architect. For the next one, let's go to the default, quick access. You've all learned about that. Go to the default factory layout workspace, and that should set up with browser on the left. Let me click on it again. There we go. Browser on the left, properties on the upper right, notes on the lower right, and then we have our work area, okay? Ribbon across the top, of course. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select script library. And as soon as I do that, scripting library, which we'll talk about when we get to a session on automation, pops up in the bottom or below the work area. So in my layouts, I'm going to go to my base template that I use starting recording. So I have my common template. Again, I cover configuring your workspaces in another session. I have toolbox to the left, browser on the upper right, along with pan and zoom and inspector. And I have notes, properties, and traceability. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select in the tools group, script library. And for me, it pops up in the lower right. So again, we'll get into script library when we get into future sessions. It may be down the road before I start touching on more advanced modeling sessions. It depends on the comments you leave me below and the questions and concerns that you have, as well as what is a priority for the viewers in this channel. So that's how you get to the script library. Let me go back over to that really quick and zoom in. Some of these may not be available to you if you do not, depending on the Sparx licensing version that you've acquired and the MDGs, model-driven generated packages that have been included in your installation. So, we'll talk about ArcGIS in a moment, Archimate, and some others, ODM, as we're moving forward. But when you load or acquire this tooling, you get some automated scripting that's available from these extensions, all right? So I'm just gonna close this, move on to the consoles next. All right, we're still in the tools panel, tools group here, and these are consoles, all right, command line interpreters. So the first one is for, oops, didn't mean to click on that. The first one's for JavaScript console. So here you can exercise a lot of JavaScript method invocations during your testing of automated scripts and other things that you might want to do. You might have some JavaScripts, you might have some VB scripts. Here's the VB script console. You might have the JS script console up, and you want to test or invoke or launch those scripts to do particular things. This is where you would do this. Again, advanced subject when we get into automation, when we get into coding in Sparx Enterprise Architect for your modeling needs. We'll touch more on this at that time. Again, feel free to read ahead, play, have some fun as you're going through this. Next, we're going to move into the technologies group or panel. I'm going to take us back to the Sparx Systems website. As we did in the very first session in this series, we're going to go to compare editions. And I want to talk about, there's 4 editions: professional, corporate, unified, and ultimate. I'm working in the unified edition. When you're going through what's available as far as tooling, you can see professional doesn't have all of the tools that Sparx produces or provides within their editions, okay? So corporate, which I put most enterprise and businesses that I work in this edition on, because they're not advanced modelers, they're just doing basic modeling. I think corporate edition is most important to be on, but still doesn't have all the additions or the features or tooling that the unified edition goes to. So I just wanted to preface before we rolled into the next session, if folks did not watch the very first video in Getting Started series, just go and whatever edition you purchase, that's the tooling that's going to be available for you. With that said, let's go back to the Sparx start page and let's go through the tabs right here, all right? So create from pattern, you can see all of these tool patterns that are available for you, all right? And I'm just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's a lot, right? Adding a diagram, there's a lot to choose from. A guidance, there's a lot to choose from, right? And you can tailor your perspectives to limit the amount you have to scroll through when you're doing things like, I'm going to go to this test package. We're just going to add a diagram, see all of the types that I can choose from and the diagrams that I can choose from, right? So in those types. So if I go to behavior, I have these. Extended, I have those. If I go to AWS, I just have that. ArcGIS, I have these. I can go on and on. Archimate, I can go on and on forever, right? It seems. There's a lot of tooling that you have to scroll through, and maybe you just want to limit that. So this is how you can do this. Now I'm going to go to the Start tab. We're going to go to Perspectives. And I just want to state this. In a team environment or in a cloud environment, your model administration group may do all of this configuration before you do. So in those particular areas, you may be restricted from using certain tooling in the team environment. But in your local environment, without those constraints, I think you're free to play. Be careful any way you want, all right? So system visibility, personal sets. Again, I'm going to get into this subject of configuration in a later session, mainly for model administrators. When we go back to specialize and we go into manage technologies, I'm going to turn off everything, right? So none. And I'm not going to go out. I want to use this core extensions, not that. Let's just turn on a couple, not get carried away. Probably should have Kanban on. You know, I do a lot of whiteboarding, web modeling, wireframing. So let's just turn these on for a moment. Oh, I want to turn on one more, BPMN 2.0 and Archimate 3, right? So there we go. Now I'm going to hit OK. And when I do that, Sparx is configuring my tooling, this spinning circle, it is done. So now when I go to add a model, I only have to choose from the ones that I mostly use. So I'm able to go through these and get to those. All right, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go back to this and, MDG Technologies, manage those technologies. I'm going to turn everything back on, okay? Because for demonstration, a lot of videos I want everything on. We're going to be going through many, if not all of these subjects over quite a period of time in this channel. So if you're interested, subscribe and follow. mostly comment down below to let me know what you're interested in, what you're not interested in, to help guide our learning experience together. Because I do all of this, and you may not want to, and you may not want to or be interested in videos or conversations around many of these subjects or technologies. So let me know. All right. So I got everything back on. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go back to it's right now. It's thinking, configuring everything. There we go. We're done. Probably should have hit the hamburger over here, show you how many of those weren't there. Just makes it a lot easier for you to tailor, play around with what you want to see. You can always go to the Specialized tab, turn things on and off as you see fit. When I get to that session, I'll talk about set, active, and advanced. We'll get into that when we get to that session. But the help button's down here, click away, and go where you want to go, right? So with that said, what we're going to do is jump over to, did I finish on this one? Yes, I did. Publish technology, all right? So I am going to bring up just anything, not that. Let's just bring up, oh, I know. Let's bring up just this building block model right here. Let's say I want to share this as a pattern. And again, I'm going to get into patterns, all of this fun stuff in later sessions, but let's just do one really quick. And a use of this specialized tab, all right? So publish technologies. So I mainly use publish diagram as pattern. So I build something that I want as a reusable pattern. I come up here and I select this. This has all the elements that are in this e-commerce package for this diagram, right? Then I come in and I say, hey, what category do I want to put the pattern in? Maybe I want to give it a different pattern name, something more unique and meaningful based on your software configuration management and governance best practices. But we'll get into all that. Versioning is mission critical and all that. So I can create a pattern. I can bring in the notes that were part of the pattern, and I can hit OK, and it will save it to the place where I keep my patterns. So I keep all my patterns here, model patterns, storyboard patterns, all of that fun stuff. And I can hit OK and save it as an XML file to bring in at a later time, right? I can put it in reusable asset service, RAS, Sparx RAS, and there'll be a video on that. So I mainly use it for script library and publish patterns, all right? This is, publish a diagram as a UML profile. Now we're getting into MDG creation, generating your own MDG technologies, all that fun stuff, much more advanced. We'll cover that then, right? So we're going to move into the rest of the technologies group or panel and across this tooling that is available for you. So our first set of tooling in this technologies panel is ArcGIS. And for those of you that are interested in geographic information systems, you already know this and familiar with it. Sparx allows you to add an ArcGIS model from a pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Here we go. We have a basic project. Read all about it. Sparx supports basic project. And then workspace. So, configuring gives you some examples of setting up and configuring your workspace for ArcGIS and so on. So there's always the help button. Have at it, have fun. And we're going to move on to the next one, all right? Because I got to move faster. The next one is ArcGIS. So ArcGIS is an open, independent enterprise architecture modeling language. And, I pretty much say TOGAF owns it, right? And you can go to Wikipedia and learn all about it, its history and so on, but it's evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years. I use it extensively. So you can generate a model exchange file, you can import a model exchange file, and of course you can select about the MDG technology, and it will take you to everything about that in the Sparx systems if you need help on ArcGIS modeling language. All right, so the next one is ODM, or Ontology Definition Meta Model. So that's a tongue twister. We get into ontological web language and RDF. You can select the About ODM and learn more. But I use this quite a bit this and when we talk about GML and especially Niem, which is National Information Exchange Model. I use these quite a bit when we're dealing with natural language processing, natural language generation, all of the things within our AI ML space. So we'll get into some advanced modeling. We'll build some models around ODM and Niem, especially Niem 2.1. Sparx still gives you Niem. Import a schema, import a 2.1 schema, GML. You can learn about GML, which is geography markup language. Wow, I remembered that. And between these three, there's a lot you can do in your domain-driven design, DDD, where you're trying to achieve a ubiquitous language. And especially when you're trying to apply a ubiquitous language and an ontological semantics to your computer systems, to your machine, to your AI. So this is going to be a fun subject. Can't wait to have a conversation with others about this through this channel. So I think that concludes technologies. I kind of jumped ahead into these other ones, but you can play with these yourself, read ahead within the Sparx. They provide such a great amount of support and intelligence for you to get through these technologies and understand them. All right. So then you have manage add-ins. I don't have any right now because I've got everything I need to work with. Add-in windows, nothing. You popped up over for me in the upper right. Don't need to bring that up. So let's just go ahead and wrap up and talk about the most important things in the specialized tab that you may be needing as soon as possible. Okay, to recap, we talked about the tools panel or tools group. We talked about system integration. We talked about access to the script library when we get into automation and the consoles that support you. So the tools panel provides a collection of facilities that we talked about to create and run automation scripts and access external data sources through Sparx Cloud Server, even from your local environment. When we get into that, we'll talk about that at that particular point. The next item we talked about was technologies. We went through how configuring your technologies that you use within your personal workspace. Your model administrator may configure many of those for you when you're in a team environment, and you may be constrained to specific tooling. We talked about and applied this back to one of our original conversations on the Start tab around perspectives for various stakeholders and roles. Those can be configured. And let's see here. We talked about this is a tab you're going to use probably the most when you want to create reusable models. These are called patterns. As you're developing and delivering your architecture into production, I'll have a whole video session on patterns, what patterns are, get into forces and all of that stuff. But when you get to a point where you've launched something and you want to call it a reusable pattern for your team members or yourself to reuse to save time, you're going to be developing and producing these patterns, all sorts of patterns. When you go to the resource tab in the browser, you have all sorts of patterns that you can store here and you can bring up, but that'll be a separate session. All right. So you're going to be accessing automation if you're allowed to. If your administrator may not allow you to get to this automation. They may expose it so you can use it within your modeling environments, but you may not be in the team space, SQL Server or cloud. In your local space, you can be probably as dangerous as you want. I'd be careful, but you're going to be using script for automation, understand it. You're going to be using the published technologies, particularly diagrams as patterns. Right. As far as the rest of the technologies here, I use ArcGIS. It's the only one I care about. I'm not interested in ArcGIS. I use ODM and Niem. Don't do a lot in GML, but it's interesting how you can tie these things together when I work with various data science groups and modelers in computer science and data science and machine learning. So we're going to have some fun when we eventually get to that. Right. And then add-ins. We talked about add-ins. So again, go to Sparx Help, read all about it. Any things you didn't get in this session that you want to learn more. The next session, we're going to be jumping finally to the Publish tab. Next to Start and Layout, potentially Design just a little bit, you're going to be using Publish tab the most, all right? Because you want to publish your work, right? Whether it's in a Word form or PDF or web, you're going to be using this a lot. So our next session will cover that. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to y'all later.